Alright friends, I'm back. Buckle up. Today we're talking about Steven Universe. That's right, we're cracking open the world of Steven Universe discourse. Yay! But for real, I want to take a look today at how Steven Universe in particular approaches violence and pacifism. Now, there are some big spoilers in this video, so if you're not caught up with the show and you don't like spoilers, don't watch this. I will spoil a lot of stuff. For the uninitiated, Steven Universe is a show about a boy with some magical powers who lives with a bunch of feminine-presenting, non-binary space alien warrior women rocks who fight monsters, and slowly becomes an epic space opera about that same boy learning about his mother's legacy and trying to put right the wrongs left over from a space war 5,000 years ago. Also, the space rocks are gay. It's just really pretty good. There are, of course, places for improvement, and I'm sure many of you will let me know down in the comments about all of those, but on the whole, it's a really good show. And so, I watch a lot of cartoons, and here's the thing. When you're looking at media aimed at kids, they generally take one of two approaches to violence. One, all violence is always bad forever. Or, two, violence is okay, even good, even the right thing to do, as long as you don't kill any people on purpose, because only the bad guys do that. But maybe killing monsters is okay. But you solve problems by punching or key blasting or magic attacking the bad guy. I'm more concerned about the second one here, and I think that those are much more common anyway. Shows like Dragon Ball Z, Voltron, Young Justice, any superhero franchise, even stuff like Harry Potter and Percy Jackson never really question the violence in their narratives. Oh, the heroes would never kill anyone, mostly. The villains sometimes die, but always because there was no other choice or they brought it on themselves. But the actual fighting is always okay. It's just what they do. In many cases, fighting is what makes these heroes heroic. And I think Steven Universe is interesting because it doesn't do this. But Steven Universe isn't strictly a pacifist show either. The moral of Steven Universe isn't that you can punch your way out of any problem.
Steven, this sounds like a very abstract problem.
It's not something we can punch.
Or that all violence is bad, but the show does explore when violence is and isn't actually needed, and presents both as potentially useful and potentially not. So the show doesn't argue that violence is always bad. The crystal gems can't help the corrupted gem monsters, so fighting them and bubbling them is the best they can do. Back in the season 1 finale, Lapis tells Steven,
"That's why we can't fight them.
That's why we have to fight them."
And when, big spoiler here, Pink Diamond pleads with Yellow and Blue to stop the colony on Earth, they ignore her. Rose's rebellion is what stops the colony and, despite the cost, saved organic life on Earth. But over and over again, we see that violence isn't always the answer, and often it is one that Steven specifically seeks to avoid when he can. Fighting wouldn't have stopped the cluster, but Steven's efforts to help it did. No amount of fighting would have stopped Yellow and Blue, and no amount of fighting will heal the corrupted gems. Only things like empathy, kindness, and a willingness to reach out to enemies, and healing can stop those things. So there's a balance here between situations where, when non-violent means have failed, the heroes have to fight, and also situations where violence fails and non-violence is the only answer. And that's a lot more nuance than I'm used to seeing in these types of shows. And as a theme for children, I think there's a lot of merit there. I'm a little iffy on shows that teach children that beating up bad guys is the best way to solve any and all problems, and makes violence not only not a big deal, but a good thing. But I think there's also a danger in teaching kids that anyone who uses violence is always in the wrong no matter what. Real life is more complicated than that, after all. In real life, violence can be a tool for good or for bad. It's not something that should be taken lightly, but it's not always unjustifiable either. But one thing that has happened very recently in the show, and that I think bears mentioning, is how the idea of privilege plays into this. Specifically, the fact that Steven has a form of privilege that allows him to try nonviolent solutions in ways that the other gems can't. So just so you know, for the purpose of this video, we're defining privilege as an advantage granted only to a certain kind of people, access to a level of social influence or power that others are denied. In Stephen's case, as we've pretty recently learned, and again, big spoiler, he's basically a diamond, or well, half diamond. So he's got diamond privilege, I guess?
Okay, let me put this in Earth terms for you. You're about to enter the lion's den. Luckily, you're a lion too. You gotta roar at them in their language. You're the one that has to do it.
Right.
So many of the ways that Stephen has avoided violence in the past rely on the fact that he has Pink Diamond's gem, and at least some of her abilities.
Stephen.
Oh, there's a third option now.
No matter how heartfelt, if Pearl had stood up to Blue and Yellow Diamond the way Stephen did, they would not have stopped the way they stopped for Stephen. Pearl couldn't have taken a non-violent path, but Stephen could in this situation. Stephen can go and theoretically talk to White Diamond when Bismuth or Garnet never could. He's going to face some problems with White Diamond, but Bismuth or Garnet would have been shattered. Stephen has the ability to pursue non-violent actions because he has access to social influence that a Pearl or an Amethyst or a Peridot don't. So we're in this position where the show is exploring not only how both violence and non-violence can work or fail in multiple situations, but acknowledges that people without some kinds of privilege or social influence often must resort to violence, as non-violent ways aren't available to them. That people with privilege can effect change without violence, but those at the bottom often can't. So that's interesting. It's an interesting level of nuance to a complicated topic in a kids' show. And honestly, just having a coming-of-age story about a young boy whose weapon is a shield and who wants to change the world without fighting is kind of nice. Now, if we can just survive this hiatus, I'm sure it will all be fine. Alright, well that's all for now. A big thanks to my patrons, especially Vextifer, Garrett Robinson, Heba Assad, Sebastian Warren, and Adrian Alvarez. Y'all are the best. Be sure to head over to the Patreon page soon and vote on the next video topic. And if you liked listening to this queer millennial feminist ramble for a while and want to do it again, do all the YouTube things. See you next time.